What is going on, YouTube? Reverse John Stanek from Johnny Radio here, bringing you another Top 5 on this glorious Top 5 Friday, and I'm so excited to be talking to you about my Top 5 favorite albums from 1997. Such an amazing year in music history. I know I say that a lot, but I really mean it this time, and you'll see why. I may even have to list some honorable mentions at the end because just so many great records came out this year. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it at number 5. Time Out of Mind by Bob Dylan. Man, this is such an amazing album, and in his discography, I think really stands out. It was kind of a comeback for him at the time, and he won a well-deserving Grammy for Album of the Year. This was masterfully produced by Daniel Lanois, and it has such a cool kind of dark and mysterious vibe to the album with songs like the opener Lovesick, one of his greatest ballads of all time with Not Dark Yet, some really cool bluesy numbers like Cold Irons Bound, and then you got like a 10+ minute closer with the Highlands. There's really not a weak track on this album. I think it's one of Dylan's best, especially toward the latter part of his career, and that's just at my number 5. So now at number 4, Secret Samadhi by Live. Absolutely a fantastic and yet another kind of dark album. This one more in the grunge rock alternative setting, and I think it's actually Live's best album. I know a lot of people are kind of mixed on this because Ed Kowalczyk's lyrics are kind of all over the place and sometimes make no sense whatsoever, but I think that's part of what makes this album so fun once you get into it, with songs like Lakini's Juice and Century, which has some of the strangest lyrics, and then you have really cool slow burners like Ghost that go from a whisper to a scream in the best possible way. Live is one of those best bands from the 90s that really know dynamics and how to build a song and have it really explode. And there are so many great moments on this album, from the opener of Rattlesnake all the way through to Gashead Goes West. I think this is such an underrated album, and it's just at my number 4. So now at number 3, Buena Vista Social Club. Man, this is such a great album, and one that I just came to know in the last year. I had no idea this existed, and I'm so glad that now I do. Essentially, famous guitarist Ry Cooder fell in love with Cuban music and the Cuban culture, basically went down there and recorded all these musicians that had been playing for years and years, all these well-known musicians in Cuba that were, some of them still doing their thing like in their 80s and 90s. And some of these songs are just so amazing and hypnotizing, like the opening track, Chan Chan, which I had never heard before. I'm a sucker for good Latin music when it's good, man. And I love, like Ry Cooder, every time I'm introduced to something about Cuban culture, whether it's the food or the music or the people, I'm just in, man. And this album, I think, fully encapsulates the culture, their music culture, in such an amazing way. So many amazing moments with different instruments, like on the guitar, on the trumpet. These guys know how to do their thing. Songs like El Cuarto de Tula, and beautiful ballads like Murmullo towards the end of the album. I can just go on and on about this record. The piano, whoever's playing throughout the album, I think it's different musicians throughout, but oh my God, it is just fantastic. And if you haven't heard it, you have to check it out. And that's just my number 3. So now at number 2, Urban Hymns by The Verve. Man, Britpop or Brit rock, whatever you want to call it, was at an all-time high this year. There's so many great albums that came out of England, and I think this is definitely The Verve's best. I mean, from the opener of Bittersweet Symphony, one of the greatest opening tracks, one of the greatest songs of all time, period, to the closer of Come On, which is just so cathartic, one of the best rockers of that year. Plus, you've got hits like The Drugs Don't Work, which is just such a heartbreakingly beautiful ballad. You've got songs like The Rolling People, which is another great rocker. Really, there is not a weak track on here. And Richard Ashcroft just showing that he is such an amazing vocalist throughout here, not just in the songwriting, but what he does in between the lyrics, if that makes sense. He does a lot of kind of for lack of a better comparison, things like that Jim Morrison would do. Ray Manzarek called him a shaman. You can really feel that kind of energy here from Ashcroft as well. And Nick McCabe, the MVP on here, his lead guitar playing is fantastic. And that is just my number 2. So now at number 1... OK Computer by Radiohead. You knew this was coming, man. I am a huge Radiohead fan, and this is my personal favorite Radiohead album to this day. I think a lot of people would agree with it. I mean, it is just a masterpiece, right up there with Dark Side of the Moon and other greats of all time. Tom York and company going to an old haunted mansion to create these songs full of tension about where the world was headed at the time, and so prophetic when you look back at a lot of these lyrics. The closing track, The Tourist, being my favorite, actually saying, "Hey man, slow down, idiot, slow down," which kind of gets the overall message of the album hitting home at the end. But starting with Airbag, a very cool and just strange sounding song. They go so many different places musically. I mean, just within the song Paranoid Android alone, with their kind of Bohemian Rhapsody with 3 or 4 different parts to it, all amazing in and of themselves. You've got songs like Karma Police, No Surprises. It almost reads like a greatest hits album, but as a whole, it is such a beautiful record where you cannot skip anything. You have to listen to it in its whole entirety. And yeah, I absolutely love it. That is my number 1. So let me know in the comments below what you think. What did I miss? Because there's so many great records, as I mentioned. I do have to give an honorable mention to Third Eye Blind. Their debut album, I think, is one of the best debut records of the 90s. So good from start to finish. That almost made my list. Of course, Pop by U2, which I've talked about on my top 5 songs of 97. The list goes on, but yeah, such a great year in music. So again, let me know what you think. If you're so bold, leave me a top 10. And guys, we got top 5s every Friday, album reviews, top 100 countdowns, and so much more. Thank you for watching, and as always, Viva La Vinyl. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and be sure to ring the bell for notifications so you can always see great quality content like you're seeing on the screen right now. Thank you so much for supporting Johnny Radio, and I'll see you soon.